In this video, I will go through every player selected by my computer algorithm that you need to succeed for your lineup in tonight's main slate of NBA games on FanDuel. My name's Quick Pick Nick, and by calculating the stats, matchups, and hot streaks, I'm able to give you the locks and lotteries for tonight's games in 5 minutes or less. The first lock for this lineup is at center, and although there may appear to be a clear choice here, I'll be scrolling down the list to get the series' most underrated moneymaker, Robert Williams. Before Series 2, Boston had a shared workload at center, with Enes Kanter stealing a spotlight from Williams during some games, especially near the end of the series. However, things have very clearly changed this series, as during games 1 and 2, Kanter remained on the bench throughout, and Williams played for 18 and 17 minutes respectively. He put out good fantasy numbers during those games as well, averaging about 22.5 fantasy points per game, so be sure to save more money at center than any other position by spending nearly a third of the cost of Nikola Jokic. For the next lock in this lineup, it's Kawhi Leonard at small forward. Leonard's placement here at small forward almost goes without saying, but in case I need to spell it out for you, Leonard averaged almost 60 points per game throughout his first series against Dallas, a defense who lets up less points per game than Denver. In addition, the last time that fun guy went up against the Nuggets, he averaged 1.36 fantasy points per minute, meaning if he plays for 40 minutes tonight, he will likely score more than 55 fantasy points, which my model expects to increase even more given the path of destruction he left in Series 1. For the final two locks in this lineup, my model suggests taking Daniel Theis and Marcus Morris. These choices might be surprising considering it means Jason Tatum gets left out altogether, but this position was the only spot the model was able to cut costs to make room for other spots in the lineup that needed that extra spending to a greater extent. It'll make more sense once we get to the guards, so while we're at power forward, the rationale for taking Theis is because it seems that this new matchup with Toronto is a favorable one for him, as Theis averaged about 33.5 fantasy points through the first two games and played for an average of 27.5 minutes. As for Morris, he's been consistent throughout the entire season with a floor at about 20 points and occasionally decent upside. One reason for his low price tonight might be due to his most recent performance, where he played for less than a dozen minutes. This unusually low game time is simply due to his early ejection, so if Morris is able to play nice and keep his hands to himself tonight, he will be a cheap player that will allow us to take the more pricey guys next. Before switching to the lotteries, the 2 point guards I took weren't necessarily locks for one reason in particular. There's no way to tell which of LA's point guards are going to get the ball. Will it be Lou Williams, who took a bit of a backseat to Reggie Jackson during the second half of Series 1, or maybe Reggie Jackson himself, or even Patrick Beverley, who might be coming fresh off an injury that kept him out of all but one of the games in Series 1. Unless you have an insider, which I don't, there's almost no way to tell, which is why I'm avoiding all of them tonight. Once we've decided that we don't want any of them though, the two choices become trivial, with my model recommending Kyle Lowry and Jamal Murray. Of the three players at the top, Lowry is the most valuable in terms of expected outcome and price, as he will likely score 40 or more points while only costing $7,800. Murray is here because of his recent explosion in games 4 through 6 of his series against Utah, scoring an average of almost 70 fantasy points per game. He cooled off in Game 7, but if he's able to show even a shadow of his former self during those spectacular games, he's well worth the extra expense. Plus, Walker is not worth the difference of $1,400, as his ceiling is much lower, around 40 to 45 points. Now for the lotteries, who are players that may or may not appear in the best of the best lineups due to that ever-present element of luck, my model recommends Fred VanVleet and Marcus Smart as your shooting guards. Between VanVleet and Playoff P as $7,700 options, VanVleet is the much more reliable and proven option, already scoring nearly 45 fantasy points per game in the first two matches against Boston. Like VanVleet, Smart is also a consistent and proven shooting guard, scoring an average of 20 game points per game in the first two of their series. Smart is also relatively cheap for his output at $5,700, so this is definitely a good spot to save. Finally, with the rest of the cash, my model selected OG Anunoby, who has also done well in the early games of the series with the Celtics, and fits in nicely in terms of price. And there you have it, the finished lineup for September 2nd's main slate of NBA games on FanDuel. If you like this fast-paced and calculated content, be sure to subscribe and stick around for more locks and lotteries throughout the playoffs. Again, this has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.